So you see, this is a controller, right? And then this works behind the screen. So when I say behind the screen, you have to understand these are typical web components. So if you look into a technical layering of how this is done, you're going to write a web application. So this web application is going to have plenty of backend components. It is also going to connect to a database. So this is basically the assumption between what you write as Java class and what you do as database. So in the previous lessons, what did we see? We created some group of classes. We call them as model classes. So when I say M, it's the model classes. And then we created another group of classes, which is the repository classes. So both of them, you can see, can bind to the database. So model directly binds to the tables inside the database, and repository, in fact, is basically derived from the model, but it also helps you to create any kind of CRUD methods. So the basic CRUD is forgiven, and it will have a lot of finder queries. So this is basically what we have learned about repositories and model thus far. So to reinforce this understanding, I have given you a workshop. I think we can take a little more time to sum it if you want, maybe even the weekend, but please make sure you complete the assignment. So in the files, you can see that I've uploaded the workshop which talks about how to do the employee example step by step. So let me just point you to that. So I just finished the modeling workshop for you. So this should give you all the details on the employee, project, course, department that we were trying to complete. So go through this. This will have much more clues and hints for you to be able to finish it. So use it, and then you'll be on the right track. So this is something that I wanted to mention. So today I want to not go back here. I want to start creating new objects. So in essence, I'm going to create two different objects by the end of evening. One is basically going to be the service class, and the other is going to be the controller class. And these controller classes are the ones that is basically going to work with your browsers. So let's say that you have a layer which is basically coming from the web browser. So you may use Chrome if you want, you may use your Binge if you want. So whatever is your browser, including your mobile browser, works the same way. You're going to make contact to your controllers, and the controllers is always going to respond to you. So this is generally how you make a contact to a controller. So there are two ways in which you can create this contact, right? So one is you have something called as the address bar. Every browser will have an address bar. So when you say you have a browser, you're talking about an address bar. So what you can do is you can create a request from here. This request is taken up by the controller, and the controller is going to give back a page. That's generally how one single conversation works. It is also possible that because these are simple web pages, you can use a HTML form to do the same thing as well. So the difference is when you use an address bar, this particular way of selecting is what we call as the get request. So when you get it from the address bar, it's called as the get request. So what happens when you give the form? Very good. So that's basically the post request. So when you start initiating data from a HTML form, it's a post request. So these are very simple HTML fundamentals. So we're going to use this. So we are going to focus on how to create a very simple controller first, see if the controller works. Then we will go ahead and create a full-fledged page that basically does a few activities. We're going to build this in stages, so we will do it one by one. So the first demo is going to be a very simple controller. So when I say very simple controller, what do I plan to do? I thought I will, even though if it's a simple controller, I'll try to use this to sort of show you a business situation. So what we're going to do is, we are going to create a very simple login form. And this form is going to take in two text boxes. One text box is going to collect the username, and as the name mentions, the other is going to cover the password. So you're going to have these two text boxes in this form. And what you're going to do is you're going to have a submit button. Okay. So we'll create all these things just using a very simple HTML form. Okay. And the moment you do the submission, it is immediately taken up by the controller. So the controller is basically listening to this. Okay. And then depending on what data you give, you are going to redirect the result into two different pages. If the login is successful, you're going to say successful login. Maybe you want to greet the user or something. Okay. And if the login is not correct, you're going to say failure. And then maybe you say retry. So this is all we are trying to model for the first round. Are we okay with the context? Can I move on? So here I'm going to write a controller. Okay, so I'm going to call this as login controller, and I'm going to show you how to do things inside this controller. Okay. So that's basically what we want to cover on the first step. Okay. And there's one more situation. Maybe it's a bit complex, but I think I should talk about it even before going in. So just give me a minute. I have to group this, otherwise it doesn't move together. Okay. So this is the situation, right? So you have a form, and then you are trying to. You can also try to say, simply say login /login, and what this controller will do is it will give you back this form. Okay. So I'm going to color code 1, 2. So these two arrows, the green arrows is basically conversation 1. Okay. So in conversation 1, I'll say use or load the page. I'll simply say go to login page, okay, and then the controller will give me a conversation. Controller will reply to me a login page. Okay. Once the login page comes, the next conversation, which is in the blue, okay, so this happens number 1, this happens number 2, okay, and this is number 3, as you can see, this is number 3, and then you can have 4A as response or 4B as response. This is the conversation we are talking about. Does it make sense? Yeah. So somebody wants to log in, they'll say login, and then a login page comes. The person is going to enter the details of username and password. It's again taken up by the controller, and the controller is going to divert you. Okay. So for the first conversation, which is the 1 and 2, the controller is going to just listen for somebody asking for the page and then give the page. For the subsequent conversation, which is 3, 4A and 4B, it's going to say validate the data. Okay. And then redirect to the correct page, either success page or failure page. So that's going to be the second conversation that's happening. Okay. So for this I'm going to write one method, for this I'm going to write one method. That's the logic here. Okay. So if I want to even give names to it, I'm going to call this method as login. Okay. I'm going to call this method as validate. So that's all is my plan. That's what I think in my mind before I go and design a controller. Make sense? Yeah? So this is what is wireframes. You see, I designed what I want to see in my page roughly like a sketch, right? So this is what Esther is going to teach you under wireframes. She is going to probably teach you a digital tool that helps you to drag and drop. I'm always an ExceliDraw fan, and I think my ExceliDraw also has the same things. Okay. So just look for UI inside ExceliDraw. You can see that all the UI components are available. Okay. So I usually use this. Okay. So let me add this. So anytime I want a text box, I want a graph, I just drag and drop. It's easier for me. Okay. So I'm just going to be happy with whatever I have here. But your specialist teacher may, Esther may basically try to give you much more tips on how to create wireframes. Okay? But this is enough for us, so I'm stopping here. Because our focus is on the code. So let's get going into the code. So we're going to create the code, right? So let's start a new project. And let's do everything step by step so that you see the one sequence again. Okay? So every time you see the sequence again and again, the concept reinforces in your head. So that's why I'm doing too many frequent full-fledged demos. So I'm going to call this as new. I'm going to call this as Spring Starter Project. I think I'm going to call this as login demo. Okay, so I'll make it as a new project. I'm going to just stick to whatever is the default, which is SGNUS edu, but I'm going to use the package name as login demo. Okay, so this is all I'm trying to create here. It's a Maven project, defaulted to 17, none of this changes. So this time you can see I want to try all the other layers as well, because later, maybe in this layer I'll just keep it simple. The next demo I will use JPA. So this time I said I'll steer clear of JPA, right? So I only need 2 projects to test this. One, I need a web project. 2, I need a TimeLeaf project. And because later we want to try services, you might need a transaction. So transaction is basically from JPA, guys. Okay? So I won't use it for the first demo. The first demo, we are not touching anything on the service class or the databases. It's just only one controller. So this time, I'm only going to use web and TimeLeaf. Okay? So after this first round, the next project I'm going to use, I probably will use all of these things and then show you how it's slowly working out. So in this demo, I'm just using TimeLeaf and web. This basically means any project that I create will be handling all these kind of controllers and web pages very clearly. Okay? So let's get started. So I'm going to say this is the default. I'm going to accept whatever dependency comes in. And as usual, I would like to open up and then test if the dependency charts are right. So how do I do that? I open up the POM file. I want to check if the web part and the TimeLeaf is inside. So I got TimeLeaf, I got the web MVC, I got test classes for both, and that's brilliant. This is good enough for me to try simple controllers. Okay? So this seems a good start. I'm done. So the next job is to create pages as well as to create controllers. Now let's start with the controller method first. Okay? So because from there is where you're going to go to the page. So I'm going to create a very simple controller class. So I'm going to say new. I'm going to call this package as .controllers. Or you can simply say controller. I have a habit of saying plural for controllers. And then here you can say new class and call this as authentication controller. So let's keep it simple, login controller. So this is what we want to create, and it's a very simple controller class. But you know from the syntax card discussion, a class cannot be a controller unless it is annotated as a controller. So that will be the first thing we do here. So we will come here, we want to make this class into a controller class. You're going to inject your controller tag here. So just look for the controller tag and then insert it. So now this class has become a controller class. Make sense? Now what we are going to do is we are going to go back to our design scenario. We decided somebody who says login. Okay? When the path they given is login, what happens is it comes here into the controller and then it redirects you to a view, okay, which is a page in this case. So what we want to do is we want to create a page first, okay? And then in the controller we want to say please go to that particular page. So it's a very simple login. So I'm not going to put logic too much here. So I'm going to show you how to write a controller. I'm going to use the method signature here. Okay, and then I'm going to just say whatever I want to add in. Okay. So I'm going to say get mapping, right? So the same logic goes here, but I'm going to use a slightly different map. So I'm going to write the signature first. I'm going to say public, okay, string, that's the page name that you want to return back. We decided we will call the method as login method, okay? And this does not need any argument because it's basically trying to read from the address bar. When you will see the demo, you will see that. Okay? So it's a very simple login method that has come in, and this method I want to map it to the get request. So I'm going to say get mapping, okay? And then I want to give a path to this. I'm going to say /login. When somebody says /login, it has to come here. Okay? And why it's giving an error is it has to return the page where we have to load. So I have to say return, okay, and then say which page I want to load. So I'm going to say login. Okay? So that's basically why it's it's giving me an error. I think I need space because I'm always hitting trouble when I hit Control S. Okay? So this is basically the page. Now, if at all you want to load the page and you want to see a message, we can also try to show you how the data gets passed through. So that's the whole idea of this controller method. You can actually add in any data that you want, okay? And then the data, you can pick it up from the page. Okay? So this part, maybe we will keep it simple now, we will try a little later. Okay? So for now, I'm just going to plainly pass the control to the login page. So what does this mean? This basically means it's going to look for a page called login.html. And where this page lives. So we have closed the code. Because it's a page, it's a HTML, you will not do it in the source main Java. Instead, you have to create this resource under source main resources. And you see, I know it's a bit tricky, it's too small, so I'm going to copy this screen, then you can see it, all of us can have a closer look. Okay. So look at this page. Okay. So this is basically where all the source code basically resides. Right? So this is where you will write your Java classes. So whatever Java stuff gets written here. We already know that the configuration file is here. Right? This is basically the configuration file. This we know. Now what is this folder called templates? This is where TimeLeaf expects your web pages. So all the web pages that you create must be from this TimeLeaf folder. Okay? And then again, you have the static folder. This is where you will put your style sheets, your images, and any other static content, okay? Which involves any other ribbons and things like that. Okay? So static usually means it's a content server. So you can put your portlet contents, etc. In our case, we will be using it for style sheets and images as we build the application. So this is basically the structure. So when the login controller is going to look for the page called login, it is going to go and search the templates folder. That's the default folder. So we have to create a HTML page inside this templates folder. I wish I had help, but this fellow doesn't help much on the HTML syntax, so I'm just going to say login.html. Okay. So I've created a page here, as you can see, and then okay, so here is where I have to put my tags. Okay. So I have to start my HTML page. Okay. So that's there. It's going to end somewhere /HTML. Okay. And then of course you can see that I need to put in any text. Okay. So I'm going to put a title for this page. Okay. So login page. Okay. So I got to say / so I created this page. I have a title, and the next thing I want to do is I want to just use the form. Okay. And I think I will use the W3 syntax card. That's easy for me to drag and drop rather than me typing everything. So there is this W3 Schools tutorials. Okay. So this is a very easy place where I usually pick my HTML tags from. So I don't like copying every single time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this to create the very simple layout I'm looking for. So I've created my title. If I want a heading, I will have to say this is my heading. Okay. So I can even show you that the heading works as expected. So I come back here after the form title. Title is usually on the web page tab. Okay. So this is my first login page. Okay. So I put a heading here. And then of course you can see that I want my HTML form. Okay. So the form is the most interesting tech stack that you will use. I think must be paragraph is fine. Where is my form? This is the form. So it's a very key entity. Okay. So I'm going to do, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy a very simple form so that I can change it to however I want. Okay. So I'm going to take this simple form syntax card. I have to put in methods here. Okay. So why is it giving me error capabilities? I don't know. Did I miss out any tag? Maybe I'll try a different perspective. There used to be a web, they removed it. That's sad. Okay. If you have a web perspective, it will tell you if you have any compiler errors. So now we have to look at the problems. Nothing, okay. So this is basically the header, this is basically the form. So form, I have to give a name to this form. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say method is equal to, and I have to say post. In case I want to use the post method, I got to say post. And I can give a name to this form. I can say name is equal to login form. So not necessary, but I'm just trying to be clear. When I show you the methods, you can see why some things are created over. So the first thing is I want to create a label, and this time I'm not going to use first name, I'm going to say username. Okay? And I'm going to say user name for the username text box. So I need to collect this. I don't know, this is really silly. So I need to collect this. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to collect this in a text box. I can also give a name here. I don't need ID, but ID is not bad. So I think I'll simply use both of them as username. Okay? So the ID is username and the name of the text box is also username. And of course the next label is going to be password. So I'll just keep it simple, PWT. And then I'm going to say please type in your password. Okay? So here again I can say text this password. You know, because if you simply put a plain text, what happens is everything will be seen on the screen. You want your passwords to be secrets. So that's why you can see I'm using type as a text box first and a password box next. I'm going to call this as simply password. So both the fields are called as passwords. So if you want to understand the syntax, I know we always say that it's self-study, but nothing is that easy. So we got to look into how these icons come into play. So that's why I'm constantly showing you the syntax card, so that if you want to try new things, you can go there and explore. Okay? So the basic elements are basically paragraph. I think we need the form elements. So let me go to the form. So form elements. So you can see that what we are trying here is the input. Okay? Type is equal to text. So if you simply say input type is equal to text, that gives you a text box. But instead of text, if you're going to say password, you can see that it will hide by using star. Okay? So that's basically the form elements that we have used so far. So I'm going back to my thing. The last thing we need is a submit button. So there are a few ways to do the submit button. Okay? So you can simply say button and then type is equal to submit. And you can also try to create it as a very decorative item. So you can also create it as a HTML button, as you see here. Okay? So here you can say button and then give a style sheet. All those kind of things can be done. But my idea is just to use a very simple submit button. So what I'm going to try is just use the form elements submit button. So if you go to the form elements and input types, you can see these are the different input types. What we have tried is input type is equal to text. And we have tried input type is equal to password. Right? These were the first two. Now what we are going to do is we are going to say input type is equal to submit. So this becomes a submit button. Okay? So you can add a label to it, but I'm going to keep it simple. Okay? So I'm simply going to say the third item is input. Okay? Type is equal to submit. And then in case I need, I think this is enough. Okay? So this is a very simple page we have created. We will keep it simple. So this is the whole idea of the page. Now this is fine. This is the login page. So when the post is given, it goes to the controller again. Okay? So that's basically the login form. And of course, you can even give values for your path when you submit it. And then, of course, the data is being read by the controller and the controller is going to respond to you. But I think you have to add two more pages here. So I'm going to call this files as success.xml, HTML. Okay. And then I'm going to create another page, which I'm going to call it as failure.html. Okay. So that I differentiate between the different outcomes. I missed a C, I have to check. So this is basically the two other pages that I need. So let me rename. I will complete these pages later on, but I just put a placeholder. So these are the 3 pages you're going to create, and everything is done via your login controller. So if you look into the login controller, the moment you say login, it has to show you the login page. So let's see if the scenario 1 works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if there's any problem, nothing. So I'm going to select this and then say run as a Spring Boot application. So this should get all the jar files done. The page should load up. And of course, you can see that the default properties will be that the application name is login demo. So I'm simply going to see if the 8080 loads, and then there's a front page. I don't see any errors. So this basically means my application is up and running. So I'm going to say localhost 8080. So this basically means my application is up and running. Now what I want to do is I want to say /login. This was the design. So I said /login. So what do I expect now? If the controller works well, it should show me the login page. So because I'm typing this on the address bar /login, it's a GET request. So it has to go and hit the GET request and then get me the path. So I'm going to say hit that. Immediately you can see the login page comes in. So the first scenario or first conversation is over. The next conversation is I'm going to put in some text here. So TT, some text here. And when I click on the submit button, I expect the controller to pick it up again and then of course respond to me. So I suspect I forgot the form element has got a path name. So let me just check the syntax. So HTML form will have the form. Actually, I have to give a name and a path. So that's basically not being specified in this example. So let me see if there is any one. Okay, so I can say which is the action, right? So this is the action label I need. And I also need method is equal to post. So here what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up the login page. And this time what I'm going to, for simplicity, what I'll say, before the method is equal to post, I got to say action is equal to, and give a login name for this. So what was the path we decided when we decided about the sequence? We said this is going to be login, this is going to be validate, right? So maybe I can simply use validate as the path. So when this request goes in, it goes via either login or via validate. So to differentiate the two, because we are beginners, I'm going to call this as validate method. So the action that is going to go is validate. So I got to put in a, I don't know why, I think my recorder is basically blipping a lot. So that's one of the possibility that I'm not getting control assist. So I've created the validate tag method. So I got to go back to the login controller. Now this time I got to create another method. So it is not going to be the get method this time. It's going to be the post method. So I'm going to say post mapping, and then the path is not login. I'm going to say validate, because here in my page, what did I design? I designed it as validate. So that's the same path I'm going to use here. So I will also change the method as validate, because you can't have two methods with same name here. Now what I have to do is I have to check the parameters. So where do the parameters come from? So they basically come from the argument. So here I'm going to put in the argument as request parameters. Then I have to say what's the first parameter, which is username. It is of type string. So there's a request parameter that comes, it's of type string, and it's called as the username. Very similarly, I need to have another request parameter that's going to read my password. So here again, I'm going to use the same string, but this time the second one is a password. So you see, normally what I have to do inside my controller is I got to make sure that I read the username and password from the database, check if it's a valid user, and then do the job. But now we are only focusing on a very simple flow of controllers, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hard code. So I'm going to say if username. So the condition is the username, okay, dot equals, ignore case, okay, and if the username is, say for example, I'm going to check for the admin user, okay, and then I'm going to say and I'm going to put the same condition again, and this time it's going to be on the password. Okay. I'm going to hard code the testing now because I don't want to go back into the whole thing of databases. Okay. So we'll do it when we integrate everything end to end. So if everything works fine, okay, so I'm going to have a string here. Okay, so I'm going to say string is equal to, by right, I will simply assume that the page is going back to the login page. So if this is an error, what you have to do is I'm going to say is path. Okay. So I'm just, maybe I'll say controller path, cpath is equal to login, because sometimes path could be a system variable. I don't want to take chances. So I've created cpath as the login page first. In case the username is admin and password, I'm going to say path, cpath is equal to /success. Okay. And else, what am I going to do? Yeah, correct. Okay. So I'm going to say cpath is failure. Brilliant. So you are thinking along with me. So I'm going to say cpath is equal to failure. And do you see that I never say the .html? Even in the previous scenario, I only said login and it picked up the login.html. So HTML is unspoken. You don't have to say HTML every single time. And also you don't have to say the / every single time. It goes and understands all these things. Okay? So I'm going to just return the cpath. Whatever it is, I'm going to put back the path. Okay? If none of this logic works, it's going to go back to the login screen. If I have a successful login, it goes to the success screen. Otherwise, it goes to the, so it's the very simple logic that I've coded inside my controller. Make sense? Okay. So let's see if this works. Safer to restart server because you are trying to write static pages. Dynamic pages will automatically restart, but the static pages we are not very sure. So always do a restart. Do you see any errors here? No errors, which means it's all working fine. So let's try login, then let's try putting in the data and we see if it works. So I'm going back to this page here. So I'm going to say login. Okay, so when I simply say 8080, it gives me the white label. But when I say /login, when I say /login, okay, and then it loads up my page. If I give admin and then password is just plain password, this should go to the controller. Okay? But then why is it giving me error? It can't find my template. So success. It has gone to the logic. It has created success. Okay? But it says it can't map to the success. So I think there should be some typo. Let's check. Yeah, there is. You see, here I said double C. Here there's only one C. Okay? That's the typo. So I go back and rename this. Refactor. I thought I renamed it, but looks like I did not. Okay? Refactor, rename. I'm going to call this as CCESS. Okay? So I save it. So let's retry the situation. So I'm going to go into the page here. Localhost /login, that loads the page. I'm going to say admin is the user and password is the password. I submit it, it goes to validation. Okay? But I don't have any content in my success page. So what I have to do is, if I want to see sensible answers in the success page, I got to create an HTML that does something. Okay? So I'm going to go back here, complete this so that we can see the full round and finish this demo. So I'm going to go to the HTML. So I just want to find some basic text elements. Okay? So I'm going to say this is the success page or whatever I want to type in. Okay? So I'm going to copy this and then try to write things inside my success page as well as my T4 page. So in my success page, I'm going to say login was successful. Okay. So I'll say SUCCS success, and in paragraph, your login was okay. So this is basically the success page. I'm going to copy the same into the failure so that we will test that as well as failure. Please try again. Okay. And then it will be good if you can hyperlink the login page here. Okay. So which we will do after I teach you the syntax card for hyperlinks. So for now, this is basically the scenario we want to try. So I think all the tags work. So let's try. Okay. So save all, and then of course I'm going to restart the situation. But I think I can add one more piece here. You remember we wanted to send data, right? So here I would also want to add model class. Call this as model. Okay. So this model class is again from the Spring framework. Okay. So it's the UI, which is the model. So here what I can do is inside the success page, I can also say model dot add attribute. And I can put in the attribute as, I can simply call them as a username. Okay. And comma, I will pass in the actual data, which is the username. Okay. So I'm just adding one more piece here. Okay. So this is basically the username I'm adding. Okay. Now how do I print this inside the success page? Here, after I type in, I would actually put this as a paragraph so that we can see. Okay. So I don't know why my content assist is not that creative. So I have to use this tag called I don't even need the full one. Okay. So here I can say text, and then I have to put in the value as $username. Okay. But what you have to do is you have to add the ThymeLeaf syntax card to the top of your document. Okay. Otherwise the ThymeLeaf doesn't work. So I've used the page text is fine, but I have to connect the ThymeLeaf. So let me pick up the ThymeLeaf syntax from here. Okay. So you have to say XML is ThymeLeaf. So without this, the dynamic tags won't work. So that's why I'm doing that. So I'm going to say HTML, please use ThymeLeaf. Okay. So let's see if this prints. I hope I'm not done any syntax mistakes. So I go back. Yeah, I go back to the same situation. I'm going to say login. It gets me the login page. I'm going to say admin, then password. Then I submit it. Oh, it goes to the failure. So let's see why. So something went wrong in the controller. So maybe I didn't type properly. So let's try again. Or maybe I should restart. So let me restart the server here. Because I changed a lot of things inside the HTML page, it's better that I restart. Success gets me the success page, else it's the failure, right? Okay. So that's all I need. I don't need anything else. So let's see. Okay. So I open a new tab, so I can be very sure that it is not the typo mistake. So I'm going to say admin. I'm going to say password. Okay. So you can see that it has logged in. It also printed my username. Do you see that? So that's basically the dynamic tags that we will pick up from here. Okay. So it took me